The wreckage of the UESN Horizon tumbled silently through the void. Its once proud hull now a jagged skeleton of twisted metal. Plasma burns scarred its flanks like open wounds, still glowing faintly in the darkness. Alien boarding pods clung to its broken frame. Their organic-looking tendrils burrowed deep into the human ship's armor. Inside what remained of the bridge, Commander Lisa Hayes wiped blood from her forehead with the back of her hand. Her uniform was torn. Her left arm hung limp at her side, but her eyes burned with defiance. "Last status report," she growled into her cracked comm. "Engineering gone. Life support failing. Weapons offline." Lieutenant Cho's voice crackled through static. "They're breaching Deck 3. A thunderous impact shook the remains of the ship. The air filled with the screech of tearing metal. Lisa grabbed a fallen sidearm from the floor, checking its charge with practiced efficiency. All hands fall back to the mess hall, barricade positions. Too late, the door exploded inward in a shower of sparks. 3 Vorac warriors filled the doorway, their chitinous black armor reflecting the emergency lights. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. The lead Vorac's compound eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction as it surveyed the ruined bridge. "Human Commander," it hissed through mandibles that clicked with each word. "Your resistance ends now." Lisa raised her weapon. The Vorac didn't even flinch. A plasma bolt struck her hand, sending the pistol clattering across the deck. She barely had time to register the pain before a massive claw closed around her throat, lifting her effortlessly off the ground. The Vorac's breath smelled like rotting meat. "Pathetic soft flesh," it sneered. "Your ship was barely worth the boarding pods." Lisa choked out a laugh. "Then why send 6 of your ships to take us down?" The Vorac's grip tightened. Behind it, Lisa saw her surviving crew being dragged from their positions, beaten but still struggling. Ensign Reavers headbutted a Vorac guard, earning a vicious backhand that sent him sprawling. "You amuse me, human," the Vorac said. "Perhaps we'll keep you alive longer than the others." It threw her to the deck like discarded trash. Lisa gasped for air as cold metal restraints clamped around her wrists. Around her, the surviving crew, 23 out of a complement of 200, were similarly bound. The Vorac herded them toward the gaping hole where the main airlock had been. Beyond it, Lisa saw the monstrous shape of the Vorac dreadnought Worldbreaker, its obsidian hull studded with weapon emplacements. It dwarfed the ruined Horizon, a predator that had finally caught its prey. "Move, soft flesh." A Vorac guard shoved her forward with the butt of its plasma rifle. Lisa stumbled but kept her footing. She caught Cho's eye as they were marched toward the waiting alien ship. The lieutenant's face was bloody, but he gave her the slightest nod. They'd trained for this. They'd prepared. The interior of the Worldbreaker was a nightmare of organic, looking corridors, the walls pulsing faintly as if alive. The air stank of chemicals and something vaguely sweet, like rotting fruit. The Vorac warriors chittered to each other in their clicking language, occasionally breaking into harsh laughter as they prodded the human prisoners forward. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, the command deck. At its center, seated on a raised dais of blackened bone, was Warlord Craxus. Larger than the others, his chitin bore deep scars from countless battles. One of his 4 arms ended in a crude cybernetic weapon that hummed with barely contained energy. He leaned forward as Lisa was forced to her knees. "Ah, the famous Commander Hayes." His voice was like grinding stone. "We've studied your species' pathetic military tactics, your united Earth-Space Navy." He made a derisive clicking sound. "You are children playing at war." Lisa spat blood onto the gleaming deck. "You talk a lot for someone who needed 6 to 1 odds." Craxus backhanded her across the face. The impact sent her sprawling, her vision swimming. She tasted copper. "You are weak," Craxus snarled. "Your species will kneel. The Vorac Dominion does not tolerate defiance." He gestured to his guards. "Take them to the prison complex. Let them break under labor. When they are sufficiently softened, We will broadcast their submission to all human worlds. As the guards dragged her away, Lisa caught a glimpse of the Worldbreaker's main view screen. It showed a star chart, Vorac territory stretching across dozens of systems, and right at the edge, a single blinking dot Earth. Lisa smiled through split lips. You have no idea what is coming. The Vorac prison complex stretched before Commander Lisa Hayes like a nightmare, carved from black metal and crackling energy. The air smelled of ozone, and something faintly acidic, burning her nostrils with every breath. Her wrists ached under the heavy restraints, the alien cuffs biting into her flesh with every stumble forward. Around her, the surviving crew of the UESN Horizon shuffled in a ragged line, their uniforms torn and faces smeared with soot and blood. Move, Softkin, a Vorac guard snarled, shoving her forward with the butt of its plasma rifle. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, its chitinous plates gleaming under the harsh violet lights of the corridor. Its 4 eyes, 2 large bulbous orbs and 2 smaller, slit like sensors, tracked her every movement with cold amusement. Lisa kept her head high, even as her muscles screamed from exhaustion. She counted the steps, memorized the turns, noted the positions of every guard. The prison was a maze of force fields and jagged metal walkways, suspended over bottomless pits that hummed with containment fields. Work detail, the lead Vorac barked, its mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among its kind. Prove you're not completely useless. The humans were herded into a vast cargo bay, stacked high with crates of alien alloy. Each container was easily twice the weight of a human, marked with Vorac runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Start loading, the guard ordered, or we start breaking limbs. Lisa bent her knees, gripping the edge of the nearest crate. Her muscles burned as she lifted, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps around her. A crew struggled alongside her, Ensign Park grunting as he hauled a crate onto a repulsor sled. Lieutenant Vasquez wiping sweat from her brow before grabbing another. A Vorac overseer watched from a raised platform, its arms crossed. Pathetic, it muttered. No wonder they lost so easily. Lisa clenched her jaw but said nothing. She caught Park's eye, giving him the slightest nod. Hold on, just a little longer. Then she heard the gasp. Ensign Carter, barely out of the academy, collapsed under the weight of his crate. It crashed to the ground, the impact echoing through the bay. The young man lay on his side, his chest heaving, his face pale. The Vorac overseer didn't hesitate. It leapt down from the platform, landing with a heavy thud before Carter could even raise his hands. The creature's boot slammed into his ribs. A sickening crack filled the air. Your bones break so easily, the Vorac sneered, kicking him again. Carter curled into a ball, his breath coming in ragged, wet gasps. Lisa moved before she could think. She lunged, throwing herself between Carter and the guard. Enough, she snapped, her voice raw but steady. The Vorac tilted its head, amused. The Softkin has spirit, it mused. Then it backhanded her across the face. Pain exploded through her skull. She hit the ground hard, tasting blood. The world spun, but she forced herself up onto her elbows, glaring up at the creature. The Vorac raised its rifle. Maybe we break you next. A hand grabbed Lisa's shoulder, Vasquez pulling her back. Don't, the lieutenant whispered. Not yet. Lisa swallowed the rage burning in her chest. She nodded once, letting Vasquez help her up. The Vorac laughed, a deep, guttural sound that made her skin crawl. Back to work, it ordered, turning away as if they were nothing. Lisa helped Carter to his feet, supporting his weight as he coughed, his face twisted in pain. You okay? She murmured. He gave her a weak smile. Still breathing, Commander. Around them, the other humans worked in silence, their faces set in grim determination. The Vorac thought they were broken. They thought humans were weak. Lisa's fingers brushed against the hidden compartment in her sleeve, the salvaged comms device she'd smuggled from the wreckage. The screen was cracked, but the power light still glowed faintly. She leaned close to Vasquez, her voice barely a whisper. They think we're helpless. They don't know what's coming. Vasquez's eyes flicked to the device, then back to Lisa. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. When Lisa's grip tightened around the comm, soon, the Vorac overseer barked another order, and the humans returned to their labor. But now, there was something new in their movements. Not just exhaustion, not just pain, purpose. And Lisa Hayes would make sure the Vorac regretted ever taking them alive. Lisa Hayes pressed her back against the cold metal wall of the prison barracks, her fingers tracing the jagged edges of the broken comms device, hidden beneath her thin mattress. The Vorac guards had missed it during their rough searches, too busy laughing at the soft-fleshed vermin to check properly. Around her, the other human prisoners pretended to sleep, their bodies tense with anticipation. The dim purple glow of the force field outside their cell cast long shadows across the floor. "Status report," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant hum of the prison's energy grid. Ensign Rivas shifted closer, his face gaunt from weeks of malnutrition. "Guard rotation in 7 minutes. They always take a break near the west corridor." His hands trembled as he spoke, but his eyes burned with determination. "The power junction is 2 levels down, heavily guarded, but nothing," Corporal Chen interrupted, her voice a steel blade in the dark. "We get one shot at this. Either we light the fuse or we die trying." She held up a stolen maintenance tool, its edges filed sharp. "I've been saving this for something special." Lisa nodded, her fingers finally closing around the broken device. The screen flickered weakly as she activated it, revealing a cracked interface. The Vorac had stripped their armor, their weapons, even their boots. But they hadn't recognized the old Marine Corps field manual sewn into Lisa's uniform lining. The pages contained more than survival tips. They held the Iron Rain Protocol, a distress call no human commander could ignore. "Give me cover," Lisa ordered. The others immediately shifted, forming a tight circle around her as she input the code sequence. The device sparked, its damaged circuits protesting. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, a single green light blinked. Somewhere across the galaxy, the signal would be screaming through the void. A pulse of raw data containing their location, Vorac fleet positions, and 2 simple words: prison break. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USN Retribution, his hands clasped behind his back as the starfield stretched before him. The ship was running silent, all non-essential systems powered down to avoid detection. The crew moved like ghosts, their voices hushed, their eyes locked on their stations. Then the alert came. "Admiral." Lieutenant Cho snapped upright at the comms station. "We've got an Iron Rain signal. Origin point matches the last known coordinates of the Horizon survivors." The bridge went still. Morrison didn't blink. "Verify." Cho's fingers flew across the console. "Confirmed, sir. Encrypted Marine Corps signature. Commander Hayes is alive, and she has given us a gift." The tactical display lit up, revealing the Vorac prison complex and the fleet guarding it. Morrison's lips curled into a predator's smile. "Time to distance. 3 hours at stealth speed," navigation responded. "Armaments. Railguns charged, sir. Boarding teams prepped. Stealth torpedoes loaded and ready." Weapons Officer Vance cracked his knuckles. "We've been waiting for this." Morrison turned to his XO. "Recall the Shadow Wing frigates. Tell them to converge on these coordinates." He tapped the display, marking a point just outside the prison's sensor range. "No active scans, no transmissions. We go dark until the last second." XO Dunham frowned. "Sir, the Vorac fleet outnumbers us 3-1. If we what?" Morrison interrupted. His voice calm but edged with ice. "If we wait for reinforcements? If we ask nicely for our people back?" He leaned in, his eyes burning. "The Vorac took Marines. They think we'll negotiate. They think we'll hesitate." He turned back to the starfield. "Prep the fleet. We move in 90 minutes." A murmur ran through the bridge. 90 minutes wasn't enough time for proper battle prep. It wasn't enough time for anything but a suicide run. Morrison didn't care. On the main screen, the Iron Rain signal pulsed steadily. A beacon in the dark, a promise. Somewhere in that prison, Lisa Hayes was waiting, and Earth never left its people behind. The prison complex hummed with the constant thrum of alien machinery. Lisa Hayes pressed her back against the cold metal wall, watching as Vorac guards patrolled the corridor. Their chitinous armor clicked with each step, their 4 glowing eyes scanning for trouble. She waited until they turned the corner before slipping into the maintenance shaft. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of ozone and rust. The dim glow of emergency strips cast long shadows. Ensign Rivas was already there, his fingers working at a cracked control panel. "Got it," he whispered as the panel hissed open. Wires and circuits pulsed with alien energy. Lisa pulled the salvaged comms device from her jumpsuit. The screen flickered weakly. "We only get one shot at this," she said, inputting the code with careful precision. "Iron Rain." The words blinked red before the device powered down. Rivas swallowed hard. "You think they got it? Earth always listens," Lisa said. Outside. The prison shuddered. A distant explosion rattled the walls. The Vorac alarms wailed, their pitch sharp and grating. Lisa grinned. Right on time. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USN Retribution, his hands clasped behind his back. The holographic display showed the Vorac prison world, a jagged dark sphere surrounded by their fleet. Black dagger-like ships circled like vultures. "Status?" he asked, voice low. "Stealth frigates in position, Admiral," Commander Hale reported. "All systems green. They haven't detected us." Morrison nodded. "Good. Hold until the signal." The bridge was silent, every officer tense. Then the alert, a single pulse on the comms. Iron Rain. Morrison's jaw tightened. Execute. The first torpedoes streaked through the void, invisible to Vorac sensors until it was too late. The lead dreadnought erupted in a silent fireball, its hull splitting like rotten fruit. Chaos erupted across the Vorac fleet. Ships scrambled, their formations breaking as more torpedoes found their marks. On the prison world, the lights flickered. Then darkness. Lisa moved fast. "Now," she barked. Her crew surged forward, slamming wrenches into exposed power conduits. Sparks flew as the prison systems failed one by one. The force fields flickered and died. Vorac shouts echoed through the halls, confused, angry. A guard rounded the corner, his plasma rifle raised. Lisa didn't hesitate. She lunged, driving her stolen shock baton into his thorax. The Vorac convulsed, collapsing with a guttural screech. "Clear," Rivas called, dragging open the cell block doors. Dozens of human prisoners spilled out, their eyes wide with disbelief. Lisa grabbed the nearest Marine. "Get them to the extraction point. Move above the planet." The Retribution dropped its stealth field. The massive battleship loomed like a spectre, its railguns already charging. "All ships engage at will," Morrison ordered. The human fleet tore into the Vorac. Railgun rounds punched through hulls. Boarding pods launched, slamming into enemy ships with mechanical precision. On the bridge of the Worldbreaker, Warlord Craxus roared in fury. How did they?" His words died as the first boarding pod breached his hull. The sound of gunfire and screams filled the corridors. A Vorac officer stumbled onto the bridge, his carapace cracked. "They're inside there." The doors exploded inward. Human Marines poured through, their armor gleaming under the red battle lights. Craxus snarled, reaching for his plasma blade. But a single shot from a human rifle sent it clattering to the floor. Admiral Morrison stepped forward, his sidearms smoking. "You thought we were weak," he said, voice cold. "We invented war." Craxus could only stare as the human fleet burned his ships to ash. The darkness lasted only seconds before emergency lights bathed the prison complex in crimson. Lisa Hayes pressed against the cold metal wall, listening to the Vorac guards' panicked clicks and hisses. The distant thump of explosions vibrated through the deck plates. "Right on schedule," whispered Sergeant Cole, his face smeared with grime and blood. He held a stolen plasma cutter like a club. The rest of the human prisoners crouched nearby, armed with whatever they'd scaged, broken pipes, shards of glass. The jagged edges of despair turned to weapons. Lisa checked the cracked chrono on her wrist. 30 seconds till the entire complex shook. A deafening roar tore through the corridors as something massive impacted the planet's surface. The force threw Vorac guards off their feet. Alarms wailed in discordant shrieks. Then the real thunder began. Above the prison world, space itself split open. The USN Retribution emerged from warp like a vengeful god, its kilometer-long hull bristling with railgun batteries. A dozen more human warships followed, their sleek profiles cutting through the void. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, his reflection glinting in the polished steel of the tactical display. All batteries fire at will. The Retribution's railgun spoke first. Tungsten rounds the size of freight cars accelerated to relativistic speeds. They punched through Vorac shields like tissue, detonating reactors and splitting hulls. A Vorac destroyer cracked in half, its dying crew sucked into the vacuum. "Sir, boarding pods away," reported Commander Hale. Morrison watched the swarm of drop pods streak toward the prison complex. "Tell the Marines I want our people back, and I want Craxus alive." Below, the sky burned. Lisa heard the shriek of re-entry before she saw them. Dozens of human drop pods screaming through the atmosphere, their heat shields glowing white. Hot, they impacted across the prison yard like meteors, kicking up plumes of ash and debris. The first pod burst open. Armored figures emerged, their black combat suits absorbing the crimson light. Human Marines moved with terrifying precision, their rifles barking short, controlled bursts. Vorac warriors fell, their chitinous armor no match for tungsten penetrators. "About damn time," Cole muttered. A squad of Marines reached Lisa's position. Their leader, a grizzled veteran with a scar across his jawline, nodded. "Commander Hayes, Admiral Morrison sends his regards." Lisa grabbed a fallen Vorac pistol. "Let's return the favor." Meanwhile, the Retribution turned its guns on the Worldbreaker. Craxus's flagship shuddered under the barrage, its shields flaring and failing. "Warlord, human boarding craft inbound," cried a Vorac officer. Craxus snarled, his mandibles quivering with rage. "Destroy them, too late." The human boarding pods latched onto the Worldbreaker's hull like parasites. Magnetic clamps secured them before shaped charges blew the hatches inward. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. Human Marines flooded the corridors, their armor sealed against the Vorac's biotoxins. They moved in perfect sync, covering angles, breaching rooms, leaving nothing but corpses in their wake. The Vorac had never seen warfare like this, brutal, efficient, human. Craxus stood on his bridge as the last of his guards died around him. The doors exploded inward. Admiral Morrison stepped through the smoke, his sidearm holstered. He didn't need it. A dozen Marine rifles already trained on Craxus. "You thought we were weak," Morrison said, his voice quiet, deadly. "We invented war." Craxus lunged, a last, desperate act of defiance. A single gunshot echoed through the bridge. The warlord collapsed, clutching his leg. Morrison hadn't even blinked. "Patch me through to the Vorac High Command," Morrison ordered. The comms officer nodded. When the channel opened, Morrison didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You took our people, now you learn." Across the system, the remaining Vorac ships tried to flee. They didn't get far. Human torpedoes chased them down, detonating their engines, leaving them adrift. Lisa Hayes watched from the prison yard as the Retribution blotted out the sun. The surviving Vorac guards threw down their weapons, their once proud postures broken. One of them, a young warrior barely out of his larval stage, stared at Lisa with wide, terrified eyes. She holstered her stolen pistol. "Tell your people what happened here today." The Vorac didn't answer. He didn't need to. The lesson was written in fire across the sky. The prison complex burned. Smoke curled from shattered guard towers, the twisted remains of Vorac pulse cannons still glowing orange with residual heat. Human Marines moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency, their black armor streaked with soot and alien blood. Overhead, the sky pulsed with the flashes of dying Vorac warships as the USN fleet finished its brutal work. Commander Lisa Hayes stepped over the smoldering corpse of a Vorac warden, her boots crunching on broken shards of the force field generators. Her crew had sabotaged around her. Human prisoners emerged from collapsed cell blocks, squinting against the sudden light of freedom. Some wept, others just stared at the carnage with hollow eyes. "Medevac incoming," a Marine shouted as dropships roared through the atmosphere, their thrusters kicking up storms of ash. Lisa turned to see Ensign Reavers, the same kid the Vorac had kicked aside days earlier, now helping an older crewmate walk. His face was bruised, but his eyes burned with something new, something dangerous. Admiral Morrison's voice crackled over Lisa's comb. "Prison complex secure. Extraction in 5. Any sign of Craxis?" Lisa adjusted her rifle. "Negative, sir, but we'll find him." A scream echoed from the ruins of the Central Command spire. Human, angry. Lisa sprinted toward the sound, Marines falling in behind her. They found Craxis backed against a shattered viewport, his chitinous armor cracked, one arm hanging useless at his side. Before him stood Petty Officer Chen, her hands still bound, but her teeth bared in a feral grin. The Vorac warlord's remaining guards lay at her feet, their throats torn open. "You," Craxis hissed, mandibles twitching. "You're just cargo." Chen spat blood on the deck. "Cargo that bites back." Lisa shouldered past her crew, rifle leveled at Craxis's skull. "On your knees, warlord." Craxis laughed, a wet gurgling sound. "You think this changes anything, my fleet?" "Is scrap," Lisa said. She tapped her wrist display. The hologram flared to life, showing the burning wreckage of the Vorac armada drifting above the planet. "Your world breaker? We broke it first." The warlord's compound eyes flickered with something Lisa had never seen in a Vorac before. "Fear. Impossible, your species doesn't have. We have rules," Lisa said. She stepped closer, her rifle's barrel pressing into Craxis's thorax. "You hurt one of ours. We burn your world. You take prisoners." She smiled. "We take everything." Outside, the thunder of orbital bombardment shook the complex. Craxis flinched as the horizon lit up with the fire of falling warships. That is the Zareth garrison." Admiral Morrison's voice came through the comms again, cold and precise. "Message from Earth Command. Commander, they want the galaxy to watch." Lisa grabbed Craxis by one spiked shoulder and dragged him to the broken viewport. The sky burned. Pinpricks of light, human stealth torpedoes streaked downward, each impact sending up a plume of fire that turned the night to day. "That is Iron Rain," Lisa whispered in the warlord's ear. "Our oldest protocol." Craxis trembled. "You're monsters." "No," Lisa said, shoving him toward the waiting Marines. "We're humans, and you just reminded the galaxy why that is worse." The dropships landed in a storm of dust and embers. As medics rushed to load the wounded, Lisa watched Craxis being shoved into a reinforced containment pod. His claws scratched at the transparent alloy, hissing curses in Vorac tongue. "Seal it," Lisa ordered, "and prep the broadcast array." A young comms officer, barely out of the academy, swallowed hard. "Ma'am," the Admiral said. "I know what he said." Lisa keyed the fleet-wide channel, every human ship, every Vorac frequency, every listening post in the sector. "This is Commander Hayes of the United Earth Stellar Navy to the Vorac High Command." She glanced at Craxis's pod, then at the burning sky. "You took 50 of ours. We're taking 500 of yours. The next time you reach for a human." The channel clicked as she armed the broadcast feed. "Remember Zareth." The transmission would reach every corner of known space in hours. By tomorrow, the Galactic Council would convene in panic. By week's end, a dozen species would reconsider their treaties with the Vorac. But tonight, the Retribution's hangar bay echoed with the sound of boots on metal, as Lisa's crew came home. Some limped, some carried the fallen. All stood taller than the day they'd been captured. Admiral Morrison met them at the ramp, his face unreadable. For a long moment, he just looked at Lisa. Then he nodded. Once. "Welcome back, Commander." Lisa saluted, her hands steady despite the burns across her knuckles. "Permission to speak freely, sir." Morrison almost smiled. Granted. She turned to watch the last dropship rise through the smoke, its running lights blinking against the dying fires below. "They'll never underestimate us again." The Admiral followed her gaze. "No," he said quietly. "They won't." The Vorac High Command had barely finished receiving Craxis's panicked transmission when the first warhead struck. Across the galaxy, every diplomatic screen, every news feed, every military holodisplay flickered to life with the same image. A Vorac military world, its black spires stretching into toxic skies, now bathed in the fire of human vengeance. Admiral Jake Morrison's voice cut through the static like a blade. "This is a live feed from the UESN Retribution. Watch closely." The first railgun rounds hit the planetary defense grid at Feigney. The Vorac shield generators vaporized before they could scream. Then came the missiles, thousands of them, streaking through the atmosphere like falling stars. On the bridge of the Retribution, Lisa Hayes clenched her fists as the firestorms bloomed below. "That is for every human you put in chains," she whispered. The Galactic Council chambers erupted in chaos. Ambassador Vrel of the Zeperian Concord nearly dropped his datapad. They're glassing an entire world just to send a message. A human diplomat clad in black naval uniform didn't even look up from his chrono. 3 minutes. That is how long it takes us to erase a military target. Tell your governments. On screen, the Vorac Command Citadel, a mile-high obsidian monolith, disintegrated under a concentrated orbital strike. The shockwave flattened 3 cities. "Impossible," hissed a Cerelian observer, their floating ocular orbs pulsing with panic. "No species has bombardment precision at this scale." The human diplomat finally smiled. "We do." Deep in the Vorac home system, Warlord Prime Grax watched the feed with mounting horror. His claws dug into the command throne's armrests. "Recall all fleets, fortify the core worlds." A junior officer trembled. "But sire, our forces are scattered across." Grax backhanded him across the chamber. "Do it before they choose another target." Back on the Retribution, Morrison adjusted his cap as the last fireballs faded below. The planet's surface now glowed like molten glass. Cut the feed. Every screen in the galaxy went dark for exactly 3 seconds. Then Earth's emblem appeared, a blue planet wrapped in barbed wire. The message that followed played in every known language simultaneously. "Attention, galactic powers. This is Fleet Admiral Kira Vasquez of United Earth Space Command." Her voice could have frozen stars. "The Vorac took our people. You saw the consequence. Let this be your only warning. Harm a single human, and we will burn your worlds to ash, not in years, not in months, in minutes." The emblem vanished in 100,000 star systems. Silence fell. On the Zeperian homeworld, Chancellor Orlan turned to his military advisors. "Pull all patrols from human borders." Now, on a smuggler's outpost in the fringe, a grizzled Crixian warlord tossed his human bounty contracts into a reactor. Not worth it. And in the ruins of the Vorac High Command, Grax received one final transmission, a single line of text from an untraceable human frequency. "You're next." Lisa Hayes stood at the Retribution's viewport, watching the dying embers of the Vorac world. One of her rescued crewmen, the same ensign who'd been kicked in the ribs, limped up beside her. "Ma'am, was this necessary?" She didn't blink. "They thought we'd negotiate. Beg, they forgot what humans do when cornered." Outside, the stars burned cold and endless. Now the whole galaxy remembers. Somewhere in the dark, 1,000 alien fleets changed course. Away from human space, away from Earth. Morrison's voice crackled over the ship-wide comm. All hands, prepare for warp. We have more Vorac to visit. The Retribution's engines flared like a newborn sun. The message had been sent. The lesson had been learned. The USN Retribution slid into Earth's orbit like a blade returning to its sheath. Its blackened hull bore the scars of battle, carbon scoring from plasma fire, dents from Vorac railgun impacts, and the proud new markings of a ship that had just rewritten galactic history. Below, the blue marble of Earth spun peacefully, unaware of the storm that had just passed. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. The crew moved around him in quiet efficiency, but the air hummed with something unspoken: victory. Not just over the Vorac, but over the galaxy's perception of humanity. "Admiral," Comms Officer Chen said, her voice steady but with an edge of triumph. "We're receiving a priority hail from the Zephyrian High Council. They're requesting clarification on the terms of the Vorac surrender." Morrison didn't turn. "Tell them the terms are simple. The Vorac disband their military. They hand over every war criminal responsible for the prison camps, and they kneel." He finally glanced at Chen. Literally, on video for the entire galaxy to see. Chen's lips twitched. "Yes, sir." The ship descended through the atmosphere, its massive frame cutting through the clouds like a predator emerging from the depths. Below, the landing tarmac at New Geneva Spaceport was packed, thousands of civilians, military personnel, and even diplomats from other species, all gathered to witness the return of the Retribution and its liberated prisoners. Lisa Hayes stood at the forefront of the freed crew, her uniform patched but her posture unbroken. The scars on her face were fresh, but her eyes burned with the same fire that had kept her alive in the Vorac hellhole. Beside her, Ensign Reavers, the one who had collapsed under the weight of Vorac cruelty, stood taller now. His jaw set, the ramp lowered with a hiss. The crowd erupted. Admiral Morrison stepped out first, the sunlight glinting off his rank insignia. The cheers were deafening. He didn't smile. Not yet. Behind him, Lisa and the others emerged, and the roar of the crowd doubled. Flowers rained down from the stands. Children waved handmade flags. A group of veterans saluted, their faces wet with tears. Morrison turned to Lisa. "You did good, Commander." Lisa smirked. "We all did, sir." A Zephyrian diplomat, tall with iridescent scales and too many eyes, pushed through the crowd, his aides scrambling to keep up. "Admiral Morrison," he called, his voice strained. "The Galactic Council demands an emergency session regarding your disproportionate response to the Vorac aggression." Morrison didn't even blink. Disproportionate. He gestured to Lisa and the others. "You see these people? The Vorac worked them to death, broke them for sport. We didn't glass their homeworld. We didn't slaughter their civilians. We destroyed one military outpost. That's not disproportionate. That's restraint." The Zephyrian's frills flared. "You've destabilized the entire sector." "No," Morrison said, stepping closer. The crowd fell silent. "We stabilized it, because now every species in the galaxy knows the rules." He raised his voice, letting it carry. "Harm our people, and we erase you. Not a warning, not a negotiation erasure." The crowd exploded again, chanting, screaming, some even weeping. The Zephyrian diplomat recoiled, his scales dulling in shock. Lisa stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "This isn't just about revenge. It's about making sure no human ever has to go through what we did again." She looked at the Zephyrian. "Tell your council that tell them humanity isn't asking for permission anymore. We're setting the terms." The Retribution loomed behind them, a silent monument to human resolve. Across the tarmac, a group of children pressed against the barriers, their eyes wide as they stared at the ship and the heroes who had returned with it. One little girl, no older than 6, held up a sign scrawled in messy handwriting. "Thank you for bringing them home." Morrison's stern expression finally cracked. Just a little. He knelt. Meeting the girl's eyes. "We'll always bring them home," he said, quiet but firm, "no matter what." That night, the feeds across the galaxy played the same footage on loop. The Vorac High Command, their chitinous faces twisted in humiliation, kneeling before a human flag. The message was clear. The era of humanity being underestimated was over. In a bar near the spaceport, Lisa sat with her crew, a drink in her hand. Rivas nudged her. "Think they'll ever try it again?" Lisa took a slow sip. "I hope so," she grinned. "I really hope so." Outside, the stars burned cold and distant, but for the first time in history, they didn't feel so far away.